everybody, welcome back to another episode of Non-Gamers React, where we listen to video game music with professional musicians and folks of that ilk. Today, I don't know why I said it like that. Today, I have my friend Alex here. Alex used to play in the orchestra. Well, I don't even know what it was. A place where I received a certificate, my opera boot camp, I guess. It's so good to have you, Alex. How are you?
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I was really, really excited because, I know that you're super well versed in like a bunch of different things, and obviously you're a deep-seated musician through and through, and you have your own personal projects. So why don't you tell the folks very briefly what it is you do? Who are you? In your work, of course. I know that you're way more than your work, but,
Sometimes it doesn't feel that way.
The life of a musician is
the life of a musician is all-encompassing nonsense in every direction.
4 a.m. still working, I know.
4 a.m. waking up thinking about what projects I have not completed.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Alex. My full name is extremely cumbersome. It's Alexandra CUTLER-FETKEWICZ. For those of you who are like, have to Google. I am a violinist, an arranger, a contractor, a producer. I own a company called Philly Music Lab, which has been in business for 10 years. We employ up-and-coming musicians as well as seasoned musicians who are doing genre-bending things and playing original music. We record and produce records. I'm in the process of recording a cabaret record right now for an amazing duo called Glitter and Garbage.
Oh my God.
You should have them on, actually. Talk about the realist of real reactions. You're gonna love them. Yeah, and working on all kinds of different recording projects. I've been a classical violinist and musician my whole life since I was a very small child. So I also went to plenty of classical music boot camp and gave up my entire childhood so that I would be well versed enough to have this conversation with you today. So you're welcome. Yeah. And
you paid your dues.
I play in the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia, the Academy of Vocal Arts Opera Orchestra.
You play in the Chamber Orchestra? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're so cool. That's awesome. Wow.
Philly Pops, the reborn amazing Philly Pops. We just brought our orchestra back to life. Check that out.
The Philly Pops is back?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yes, that's another whole story for another day. But and I also am honored to serve our local community as a president of our Philadelphia chapter of the Recording Academy, which is the organization that hosts the Grammys every year and has the organization known as Music Cares, which is the philanthropic wing of the Recording Academy. And a lot of what we do is advocacy for musicians, engaging with local musicians to kind of help elevate and illustrate the talent that we have in this area and create collaboration for new musical creation across the country and worldwide. So,
that's amazing. So you're doing all of it.
In a nutshell, besides,
You're doing all of it. I mean, it's amazing. I think I know we were talking a little bit before, but like connecting people to music and helping artists, it's so hard. It's just such a hard life.
Yeah, it is.
So the idea of supporting artists and like helping them grow into what they want to be, I feel like it's such a massive gift. Looking back, I can't even imagine being like the other day I posted on Twitter, I was like, thank God I'm not in the opera industry anymore. Like, it's so hard.
Honestly, I had to diversify my life as much as possible because during the pandemic, everything was obliterated for everyone, not just in the arts, but in so many different areas. All of our lives changed, I wanted to pivot not only what I was doing personally, take it as an opportunity to do that. Like all of a sudden, I'm not going to any theaters to play gigs. I'm not getting called to go on the road, Since then, things have come back. I've had incredible opportunities, played with Stevie Wonder a couple times, with Lauryn Hill, done some amazing performances. We have Jacob Collier coming up next month.
Oh, nice.
But, the rest has to be put together. And those few performances and how they come out, that's wonderful. It's a huge part of my life. But I needed to diversify. So serving the community was a big part of doing that, changing the trajectory of Philly Music Lab and what we were doing. When somebody new comes onto our roster, we ask them, like, what is your dream gig? Well, if money was no object, what would you be doing? We get a lot of different answers. Sometimes the answer is, well, I just want to make an EP. I want to make a recording. I want to get my music out there. So I say yes, which is how I came to be the producer for this cabaret recording. And then I also said yes to producing a music festival. So
Holy God.
Producing a music festival next year.
Wow.
So, more on that another time. But the first ever Philly Jewish Music Festival will be next year.
Nice.
We're very excited to have a big old celebration of music and culture. So
it's an amazing thing how I think one of the things that I sort of realized as I started to pivot away from music as exclusively was how much diversification is actually like. It's really easy to focus on one thing and do it super well, but also most people, I think that we need to, explore. I'll never forget my last gig. I was talking with the woman that was singing Lady Macbeth, and she was like, "Well, my husband was a concert pianist, and now he runs then he was a copywriter, and then now he runs a film festival." And I'm like, how the fuck do these people? How do you do Because in my mind, I was like, I'm an opera singer. But the reality is that you can be an opera singer. You can be, in my case, a voice actor, a YouTuber, you can kind of do all of the things, which you're clearly like emulating, which is incredible. I mean,
as I'm sure your viewers know, being in the classical world by now, by how well they know you, being in the classical world and being that intense in it often leads to us being put into a box of this is what you're going to do. This is who you are. This is what you're going to be. Music is not who we are. It is not our identity. It is something that we do, whether it's because we are fortunate to have the privilege to do it, the means to do it, the talent to do it, all of the things that, the sort of drive to do it, but it isn't who we are. And so when we get put into that tiny box of like, you are a violinist, you're an opera singer, and if you're focusing on something else, you're not enough in that other area is nonsense. It's nonsense no matter what you do, actually. Yeah. If you're a corporate person or you're a postal worker or you fold napkins at a diner and someone says to you, you can't do anything else besides this, would you listen to them? Of course you wouldn't. Of course. So musicians, though, after so much of that being driven into us, sometimes it's hard for us to diversify what we're doing, even though that's really what's going to break our hearts and our souls open creatively, Right. So, I mean, it's made me feel like a more satisfied person to be able to do all of those things. And most of the really incredibly talented and successful musicians I know are what they call multi-hyphenate artists. They do all of these different things. They're, perhaps a singer and a songwriter, a producer, an engineer, and maybe they own a studio or a company or what have you. So I think when you get to the highest calibers of what we're talking about, you see a big diversification of skill sets. Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Well, in this case, let's dive in. I know that you have a list that you have to. We'll get to your list, your non-embarrassment, your list that your fiance made. But let's listen to like a couple tracks before we.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, just to clarify really quickly, so obviously you've played in some orchestras with with the video on display in the background, and you've done some of that. You've obviously you mentioned that you nominated 8-Bit Band, the 8-Bit Music Band. Oh God, what's their name?
I voted for them. Yep, the 8-Bit Big Band. It is
8-Bit Big Band. Yes, thank you. So you have some understanding of like what music and video games sounds like, but really the scope is not. You don't like. I'm about to hopefully blow your mind with a bunch of different things.
I really wasn't permitted to play video games or watch TV even very much when I was a kid. My parents weren't in a cult or anything, but my mom just wanted me to be doing other things. And so I had very limited access to television, and the only access to video games I had as a younger child was at my friend's house, and the only thing they had, are you ready, was Atari.
So, yeah, but I mean, like, what's funny? Anyway,
Atari, the number one OG of all OGs.
Well, so you could have said Commodore 64, so it could have been worse.
On Miss Pac-Man, okay, we'll kick it. But unfortunately, I already embarrassed myself with this crew. I mean,
no, times have changed. Now they're like fully immersive movies and stuff. So
I know. I'm like, oh, this is too stressful for me now. I can't. So I do love playing them when I get the opportunity, but it's kind of, a bit of nostalgia for me more than it is a pursuit of greatness like it is for all of you.
Well, we're going to dive into something. I know that you obviously have a very eclectic sort of palette. I did obviously bring a lot of orchestral stuff just because of, your background. Yeah. But I wanted to check out this really dope song from Minecraft called Pigstep. And it's got like a real EDM-y sort of funk to it. Minecraft, do you know what Minecraft is?
Yeah, I do.
Minecraft's original sort of music was very piano heavy, very dulcet, kind of almost like a lo-fi without any of the synthetic. I mean, there was a degree of it, but for the most part, it was very, very, very placid. And, it was all about like living your dream and creating an environment. Over time, other composers came in. And in this particular one, I don't know, it's just such a banger. I just want to hang out and listen to it. What do you think of that? I mean,
it's pretty dope.
Yeah,
I like it. It's interesting. I'm trying to keep my classical hat on for you, but my non-classical producer hat goes right on.
That's fine.
Like
That's fine.
The sorting hat decided that I couldn't use my classical hat today, or at least not for this. No, I love that brass sample and that low brass sample in the beginning. To me, when you described how the music started out as this sort of like really chill, kind of mostly piano, coming to this is a big giant step in a production sense and in a composition sense. So like this person who composed this clearly had a clean slate to work with. Like they let her off the reins, I didn't mean that pun. Oh God, that was awful.
Later
strike that
rain.
from the record, bro. No, they really did though. Oh God, I hate a crappy pun.
Yeah, well, it was kind of like almost like a reset, and having the flexibility to create something like that.
I almost want to see where, like, if that is a precursor to a longer piece of music that is part of this same part of the game, or is it just those 2 minutes and 25 seconds or so?
I actually don't know. So maybe someone in the chat in the chat. Oh my God, brain rot. Someone in the comments can explain. But there are several other tracks from the Nether update, and I don't know if Lena Raine was the only composer on this, but because they may have been a team. I'm honestly not positive. But either way, like this would be the new sound font of Minecraft and
Gotcha.
the sort of
Yeah,
natural evolution of. Do you like it?
I do. I'd like to hear more of what she writes.
What's amazing actually is that she's also an incredible classical composer.
That doesn't surprise me at all, actually. And this doesn't really feel like this really feels like a backing track to a hip hop tune, like to a rap artist. I could actually hear, like some of her intention is probably to make those solos sound like what a vocalist would do. Like a little tiny, like instrument the areas where there are melodic instruments playing. I don't know how far you want me to get on this, but
all the way. You mean when ba 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 ba?
Yeah,
ba,
like
ba,
where there's
ba,
things
ba.
that are almost like a MIDI guitar or a MIDI sax or something like that. The arranging is pretty complex for video, kind of like just a little interlude type of music like this.
Yeah.
I mean, I know from even hearing the running music when something is paused. I don't know what that's called in your world. I'm sure it's got a name. It's usually pretty basic, repetitive. It's nothing like that catches you at all. But if this is the direction things are going, I'd probably want to listen to it more. I mean, I would listen to this as a piece of music by itself is what I'm trying to say by that.
Right. You don't need the context in order to feel connected to it.
Yeah.
Right. Do you like metal?
Yeah, bring it on.
This is one of the most, probably the most popular, maybe most famous pieces of video game music, at least in the metal scene. Mick Gordon is a phenomenal composer and producer and everything else. And this is from Doom, actually. Have you ever heard of Doom?
Yes.
Surely, yes. This is the Only Thing They Fear Is You from Doom Eternal. They're shouting "rip and tear."
Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, what are they saying?
What did you make of that? Was that how was that?
Well, I understand that, like, when you know, these games for people who play them don't really induce that much PTSD, but no, I'm kidding. They probably do. No, strike from the record. It's I wish that some of that stuff was not played on a keyboard. It brought me to a place of some very enjoyable, like, late 90s Trent Reznor, like alt rock kind of vibe. Like, I could hear the influences of several great artists and bands that I love. Like, there's some Megadeth in there, and there's old school Tool vibe a little bit. There's elements of that I like a lot. It's a little, I think they could have made bigger. I like where there were bigger breaks, so that there are bigger changes in the music, I should say. And the ending is super cool. I like the unrelenting nature of it, but I wish that there was like a little bit more breathing room in terms of how the instruments are used. So when I listen to something like this, I think about like that one really dope live metal guitarist would have like really pushed this over the edge, and like why do you with this many like millions of dollars, why do you only have a MIDI keyboard playing this? It strikes me as something like there's something missing from the sound, even though it's overall an all right, you know, composition in a general sense. It's a cool composition.
I mean, it's certainly interesting. Like, I know that at one part in this, there's like a chainsaw in it, and there's like...
Yeah, I noticed some interesting sounds, and I was getting into it when it was like that. Like, that's what piqued my interest, actually, is what you're talking about. Like, where the composer started to experiment a little bit with what other sounds could be happening besides the sort of driving force of the tune, which is, you know, this theme, this sort of dark sounding theme, and this drum beat, you know, basically. Yeah.
This, and there's another song, Bury the Light, which I both really enjoy, but after a while, I think maybe it's due to like sitting and listening. Obviously there's like a contextual like experience that goes into these pieces that we're not getting, because we're also like, you know, purposefully listening with intention, you know, just listening to it. I think after a while, it's like, you ever heard like a really good singer, or well, a good player, and you're like, wow, they're amazing. But then 4 minutes in, you're like, okay, nothing.
Where are we going?
It's really good.
Yeah, yeah.
It's one of those pieces that's like almost like a video game national anthem at this point, where like you can't almost like and like it's like, you know, 30 million views, people love it. You know, the demons are actually there with you. You're not with the demons. You know, it's that kind of. I mean, it's a very empowering piece. It's great for the gym and stuff. But like, I feel like I totally hear your point.
It says gym playlist on the
yeah.
Like they knew it wasn't going to only wind up in front.
Yeah. Let's stay in this sort of range. But actually, there's this really cool piece that I heard. I didn't realize that actually was available now as a standalone audio. There's a really cool Vivaldi reinterpretation with EDM and different things like this that I would like to showcase. This is from a game called Honkai Star Rail. It's called A Dramatic Irony. Had to bust out the headphones.
Yes, I did.
I don't think that's a real player. I'm pretty sure it's a
Yes,
VST.
that's the reason, because I needed to get. I don't have you plugged into my studio monitors right now, and these are excellent. These are my studio headphones.
Oh, I love. Yeah.
But it doesn't. I don't want to mess around with the mics and all that.
Does it bother you that? I mean, a lot of video game music uses VST and uses it makes it easier to compose in a fast way.
But does it easier? I'm sorry. What maybe I misunderstood what you asked.
Does it bother you that it's not like a live musician?
Oh yes, definitely. Because first of all, there's two things that could have happened. There could have been a musician who was hired, a work for hire, to record that, and a very easy license obtained to use the material because it's in the public domain. So they wouldn't have, run into any composition or copyright issues with the songwriter because the songwriter's been dead for 400 years.
As far as we know.
No, it is in the public domain, obviously. Yes, as we know.
He's hiding out somewhere.
Obviously, where he would go.
He's under a bridge in New Jersey.
Yeah, but the other thing that could have happened is they could have bought the rights or gotten the licensing rights to use a sample of someone playing that violin concerto. There are countless recordings of it. And in that case, they would have had to pay the sound recording license if they wanted to use it as a sample, but they could have paid someone a few $100s to come into the studio and record it for them. So yes, it bothers me because with the millions of dollars, again, that these studios have to pour into this stuff, why are you not using sound stages with real musicians? All of the music that you loved in movies, all of you loved in movies when you were growing up, were full orchestras of human beings playing instruments on a soundstage, being recorded note by note onto analog tape. There was no digital recording when I was growing up, at least, so I'm going to date myself a little bit more, just like we only had joysticks. Right now you could think and there's a video game in front of you. It's wild. These were human beings that created all of this. And so it does bother me because it's the erosion of culture. It goes hand in hand with the erosion of how we compose music and how we create art. So if we're not using our minds, then we don't need to use real live musicians because it doesn't have to be interesting anymore. And so, also this pivot away from honoring the arts and how important they are is wildly bothersome to me, not just as a musician, but as someone who just values the fabric of society staying together. I don't know. I know that's kind of that ship done sailed, but okay. That being said, I still have this pie in the sky, very romantic, hope for the world that, our society and other societies around the world will recognize again the importance of arts and culture in the fabric of a well-functioning society. And with that, on my little soapbox, I will now descend from. I will say that it doesn't cost that much to hire live musicians. And if you have millions of views and you are, provided to YouTube by The Orchard, which is the indie arm of Sony, and if you have, these giant studios paying for this music, they have the money to do it. So if you as listeners and lovers of this and consumers of this music demand that these things are composed with real musicians, they will be. But you have to say, we want live musicians. Start complaining in the chat. And the studios will listen, but you have to speak up. And then if you're voting members of the Recording Academy, last year's winners, by the way, I was looking this up because I thought you might like to know, the best score soundtrack for video games and other interactive media.
Yeah. Wasn't it? Was it Call of Duty? No, it was Assassin's Creed Ragnarok.
Hold on a sec. I think.
Well, that was the year before.
The winner was Wizardry. Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord. The nominees were Star Wars Outlaws. Marvel's Spider-Man 2. God of War Ragnarok Valhalla. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. Those are gigantic studios using orchestras. People want to consume music with live musicians. We all love live music. We love listening to real humans making art. So I wish this had that. It's a beautiful piece of music. I like that they combined the styles of, classical, which really is just like early metal. Come on. Early Motown and early everything. Once we gained enough cultural experience to create things like, newer genres of music. But I don't know. I like this piece of music. I just wish that it was real.
It's an interesting conversation to be had real, because what?
It's real, but it's not real,
Yeah, totally. I mean, the composition itself is well made. I think, I don't think it's like on the composer so much as it is on like, and the thing is like, not every studio has millions, like, an indie, obviously, right? Like certain, I'm going to play a track for you in a little bit that is from an indie game, and obviously but in this particular case, Hoyoverse, they do have millions because it's a gacha game. So the whole system around it is based around gambling and making as much money as possible. And they do make as much. I mean,
what a dramatic irony that is. And I'm not talking about having millions. You don't need a full orchestra to accomplish what I'm saying and to keep the arts alive, so to speak. You can hire a couple of musicians and make a giant sound and still be doing what I'm talking about,
Totally.
And I'm talking like a matter of a few $1,000s, something like that, in order to even make some of it real,
What's interesting is that this particular company does have massive concerts, where they put them on. And actually, they just toured. The Genshin Impact did a tour, just went through a bunch of different cities across the U.S. and Europe and Asia.
Well, that may be why they don't have enough for the recordings, because touring is expensive.
With the click track and all the stuff that I know that you've done a bunch of, like that's that they just did that. So clearly, there's a desire to showcase their music.
Yeah.
In a festival presentation format. So it is interesting though. I think it's a valid point. I think even wider than that and like more interesting is that like I don't think that people necessarily care, and I don't know if that's a problem. I mean, it probably is.
Well, I think you're not wrong. I mean, I think I'm obviously in a tiny little group of people that would even analyze the music in this way.
Right.
Even not in the context of what we're doing right now, but even if I'm just as a regular listener, I would still have this set of analytic thoughts about it just from my background and my profession. But I think you're right. I think most people don't care, and they're happily impressed and accepting when there is live instruments or when there are live instruments, when there is live music. But in this kind of a context, if they like it, they like it. And I mean, it also goes to the saying that we have in the recording industry, where a hit is a hit, like a good song is a good song. A good song is a good song, sort of no matter who plays it, no matter what version it's in. A good song is a good song. And you could probably name 5 off the top of your head that could be sung or performed in 6 different genres, and everybody likes the song because it's a good song. So that's what this speaks to me, for me, is that it's just the music is good and the audience wants to consume it.
But
so it's good enough. But why can't we have a real live violin? I would have played the gig for you, Ho-Yo Mix. Sorry, who are you? Honkai.
Honkai Star Rail. Speaking of live musicians, all right, let's segue. Let's do a big segue.
Okay.
A game this is a great segue, so thank you. A recent game that came out that has taken the world by storm, at least the gaming world certainly, is a game called Clair-Obscur. And Clair-Obscur tells this tragic story of a group of folks that every year the paintress in their world kills off the entire age group of that year. It started at 100 and now it's at 33. And you start the game and you watch the group of 34-year-olds be removed from the world. And so Expedition 33 seeks to, stop the paintress finally. And it was one of these sort of indie game, received support by the French government, and it's really become the darling of the year of 2025. I'm hoping it will win lots of awards. And the soundtrack is 8 hours long. and all live instruments, all live musicians, sung by real people. This was a chamber ensemble of this rendition of Lumiere, which is actually Lumiere, of course, light. This is actually the city theme, and this theme comes up a bunch of different times, and there's a lot of leitmotif usage in this game. It's really a very, very special game. And that's the composer playing the guitar. So what do you think of that?
Nice, beautiful piece of music. To me, it strikes me as something that could stand on its own outside of this, which I think the best things that you and this community of people who enjoy this music want is that. And I just want to point out to your viewers what I keep talking about credits, and I just want to clarify what I mean by that. If you are watching a YouTube video of this and you scroll down to see the information about the song, you will see the lyrics, you'll see all of the crediting information for every single person who is involved. the orchestral recording, who did it, Orchestre Curieux, bravo to them. They're beautiful players. Who conducted, all of the instrumentalists, all of the camera assisting, all of the direction, the photography. That is how crediting is supposed to look and is supposed to be done. In the metadata, when you hire a musician or an artist, if any of you do that, please credit them appropriately. It costs you nothing, and it makes their career grow. So when they have enough credits, they can join the Recording Academy, they can submit their works for Grammy consideration, they can network with all kinds of amazing people and have an opportunity to serve their communities in bigger and better ways and get more work. So it bothers me when I see music, especially played by such incredible musicians as these, that they wouldn't get credit, and it makes me so happy to see that these credits were done properly and with such respect to the people who created the sound.
It's another example of just the right things that Sandfall Interactive Studio has done. I mean, again, this game really is like I can't understate how much of a miraculous experience it is to play.
I'll have to check it out. It sounds amazing.
It's incredibly touching. It's about grief, loss, life, beauty, love, everything in between. It's very French, obviously.
It's very French. The music, also the presentation of the music to me is very French. They have some beautiful studios there. It's so beautifully produced. There are some recordings we've listened to that were also very, very well produced, but live music producing is a totally different animal than producing behind the board, in terms of how you get the sound to be epic. And they did a great job of that in the studio. Also, I wonder if the Christian allegory of this is only if it's only striking me, or is that anyone else notice that? That everybody's dying until they get to the age of Christ's death.
I don't know.
And now everything's great.
Great point. That's true. 33. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if that was intentional or not. Yeah.
I don't know, but I would love to see a piece of music like this submitted for Grammy consideration, or just to be kind of out there in the world. I'm sure that it's available as an independent piece of music, even for people who don't know where it came from or what its purpose was. But, this is the kind of thing where if there was live music playing if there was live musicians playing all of these pieces of music, it would start to kind of spread out into other genres and spread out to people who wouldn't normally consume it, give them an opportunity to hear it. It makes me wonder, how much promotion of this is there outside of the video game world, because I've never heard of this, and it doesn't mean that it hasn't been promoted outside of that world, but it seems like this music should have come across my world at some point, especially all of this string heavy stuff.
Well, it is interesting, I will say, because it was in the Billboard.
It doesn't surprise me at all.
Top classical music of, I forget, Billboard Claire's top 100 classical album.
So they created it as a separate album and then created a soundtrack for the game with that music.
Lauryn Hill, the composer, composed the 8 hours worth of music, right? And then that was for the game, and then they took the game's,
probably the thematic songs they took and made it into just an album length.
The album being the soundtrack is currently sitting at number 1 on Billboard's classical music and classical crossover album chart, number 13 on the official soundtrack album chart, and number 31 on the official album download chart. That was in May.
Wow. It was in May. It was released in May 2nd, so it must have.
Yeah, it was really, a quick. This article is from May 8th, so it was very fast.
Must have had a nice promo.
More than anything, I mean, the reason why I do this series is because so many of you that come on here, first of all, I have my own thoughts and feelings that I share as much as I can. And, but in general, it's always great to get eyes. And I've had people from the Kennedy Center. I've had a variety of, you're actually the first person that has been so deeply involved in the recording process be here, because you're also bringing up, because the thing is, some of the stuff we've listened to is also just rips that people just rip off of from the game or upload it. So they're not going to credit it. I don't think this one in particular was from the studio, which is amazing, because the game studio, someone at Sandfall did the correct crediting.
Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And that goes a massive way, again, for highlighting how important and how smart the studio's been. So
yeah.
Here's an example of an indie game that is, I believe this is also live musicians. But the credits, as far as I know, go to, well, I don't know, one person, I suppose. Actually, no, that's not possible. See, now I'm
losing your mind.
You've changed me.
Sorry.
This is a track I heard very recently that I thought was sumptuous. Is it correctly credited? No, but also this is not the official. So
okay.
This is Far Lone Sails Drive It, which is I don't actually, developed by a Swiss developer, Okomotive. Far began in 2015 as the bachelor degree student project of the lead developer in Zurich.
Okay. That's
all right, let's listen to it. Super simple, right? But I just thought, I was curious what the imagery that came to mind, because to me, it's a very interesting piece that's more about, drive it. Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously meant to be extremely repetitive and kind of like one-minded or, single-minded.
Yeah.
I want to like it more. I even with that driving sort of locomotive vibe it's got, or kind of like slow but driving kind of feeling, it to me it still could have had more things going on to make it an actual complete composition.
Piece.
But keeping in mind that this came from someone who's 21 or 22 years old, it has some very interesting sounds. There are, from a production standpoint, there are some technical issues with it that I don't know if it's like worth boring your audience with, but because it won't really make any sense. But so that's why I put my headphones on. So kind of first, actually, when I lean in, I kind of hear something that I can't quite hear very well. I want to figure out what that sound is, and then it also gives me idea of exactly what was used in the track. How the mix is, how the quality of the production, how the quality of the performance itself, and then the composition as a whole. Those are kind of like the processes that happen in my brain as I'm listening to something like this. And it doesn't really matter what the genre of music is. I realized as we're getting more and more into this, that it's not really that I'm like taking off a classical hat and putting on a producer, recording artist hat. It's that is just the one hat. And really, if I'm listening to what I would consider a fully classical piece of music, or I'm listening to metal, the process that happens for me creatively and thoughtfully is exactly the same. As a composition, what does it make me feel? Where do we go? Where do I go emotionally with it? And to me, I like that there is a single intention to this, but I think there could have been a little more.
I mean, it's interesting. Yeah.
So I see the rips of some of these, like, since these are not the original posting of the person who produced the music, I suspect, with some of these, it changes how the sound is. So it compresses the sound more.
It compresses it.
So it's not quite super fair to the person who made the original mix, because the original mix likely sounds different and better than, and more in what the writer or the producer intention. So I just want to put that out there, because I that is like something in between me and the full experience. So
it is interesting how you're approaching things with a critical lens that I think I have a tendency to just enjoy. Like, it's very, I don't often have, I mean, I have some pretty spicy takes, I would say, but in general, like, I find that my joy of it sort of gets in the way of like the critical hat. And I find it interesting having you on here, where I really liked this piece for a myriad of reasons. And it's interesting how I know you enjoyed it as well, but you're also like, there's more. Yeah. And I find that really interesting, that for a personal reflection on why I don't necessarily do that. And I don't know if I'm doing it because I want to placate and I just want to be agreeable, or also just because I just have this like joy in my heart for the music that I don't even care. Like, you know what I mean?
When you spend a lot of time producing records and you have to be extremely, extremely critical, in a way that leads to the best possible result, sometimes from another person, not even from yourself. It's very hard to stop that from happening. What I will say, though, is like the previous one to this, the Clair Obscure, I immediately fell into the feeling of just joyful listening. And same with the dramatic, like some of the other ones, I also really, like even the very first one, there's somewhere I do fall into that more easily, but I realize that what the music requires for me to be able to do that now that I've spent so much time in the recording studio is at a higher standard than it was for me before I really delved into working as an arranger and a producer.
It's amazing how you're using your brain.
Yeah, so it really has shifted how I hear music. Also, I don't know if any of your viewers would be familiar with this, or if even you are, but the kind of newest technology and platform that mixing engineers are delving into and experimenting with is immersive audio. So, sort of like imagine Dolby Surround, but on crack. So you are producing in a music studio and you have a setup of 11 speakers minimum, in which you can place individual instruments and mix in a three-dimensional way. So right now it's not a widely available technology to consumers, but it will be. It exists in high-end vehicles, so it's going to exist elsewhere. And what we're doing now on the creation side is figuring out new ways to arrange, new ways to compose for immersive audio. Imagine that immersive audio is going to become a very big part of the video game world, because it is exactly what gamers want in a game, like this full immersion. A lot of people don't want to wear VR headsets, but they want that kind of experience where, you wish you had like this like super amazing audio all around you. And that is going to be what happens with a lot of popular music in the future. And so I'm now just starting to get into writing for immersive audio and thinking about arranging in terms of that. So I contributed to a Grammy-nominated album last year that was a children's record that was mixed in immersive audio. And so, and it was on display in the New York Children's Museum, like an experience you could take your family to. So there are these applications for this that are going to go far beyond the recording studio. And for this type of music, especially for this kind of piece, where it is meant to have this sort of just locomotive kind of vibe, and you aren't really meant to stray from that creative thought musically very much as a listener. It will create a whole world of that around you with a very simple idea. So I think something like this, I might feel differently about if I listen to it in that platform. Right. Get really technical about the listening experience for a second.
That's really cool. Because I've wondered where can we go? Where does it go from here? Because I mean, there's only, at the end of the day, like, I mean, even if you think about where we've been, and I haven't played you any 8-bit, 16-bit stuff necessarily, and I may not even today, but like, I mean, it's only been 40 years it's crazy how the first musical, like music in a game, I believe was in 1980, 83 or 87. Can't remember. And so just where we are now with this sort of, VSTs and the ability to, not even use a live orchestra and do everything on, Pro Tools or Cubase or, it's insane how we don't even need to sit here and use sheet music anymore.
Yeah. I mean, many of us still do it because, I write in a program, but I also write with a pencil and a paper. Like, it's never going to fail you, I don't know. It's an interesting kind of shift. I have a belief about innovation in music, and that is that there are periods of stagnancy, especially in popular music, where there is not a shift in stylistic preferences until and unless there is a shift in technology. So what I mean by that is that with every shift in music listening technology, so going from nothing to the gramophone to the record player, which had various iterations, thanks to Victor, to 8-track, to the cassette, to the CD, to the MP3. The MP3 changed everything. It really wasn't the CD, it was the MP3 because of sharing and streaming and what that did. I think there will be another shift, and this might be the shift. It might be this technological shift. The Moog synthesizer, the electric guitar. These are major shifts in technology that completely broke apart style and genre and ability of musicians to create different sounds, and we're always looking for a new interesting sound, a new way of creating sound. So I think that this immersive technology will also be part of that and will also create that kind of a shift in this world, in the world of video games too.
Yeah, it's extremely interesting. 3 years ago when I started the channel, I was asked to review from my Patreon this piece called Zero from Ace Combat, which is a fighter plane game. Okay. And I was kind of like, this is going to be so bad and like mechanical and whatever. And I was blown away by it. It featured tango, flamenco, this like real like castanets and like all this other stuff. Subsequently, I heard this other piece called The Unsung War, which is the title of the game Ace Combat 5, The Unsung War. And this is literally, you're basically, for lack of a better word, you're playing Jesus. You are just an incredible pilot, and you save the world multiple times. And this is The Unsung War. What did you think of that? I saw
like
some
it.
smiles.
It's very cool. It's a very big sound. I recognize the name of some of these composers. Keiki Kobayashi, I know his name. Probably.
You do?
Yeah. And probably because it's I've seen probably submissions of his, but also didn't he write music like a while ago as well, like for older?
He's been around.
I feel like maybe something for Wii, or maybe even longer before that. It's a really incredible piece of music. I mean, it's repetitive, but it held my attention a lot. I wish the orchestral sound wasn't so tightly compressed sounding. There's a lot of produced sounds in there and not live instruments, but the choir is like going for it, man. Go for it. Sing. I love hearing it, like this big a sound to me makes so much sense in so many of these games. And it's only recently that we hear, at least correct me if I'm wrong, friends around the world, that we hear like super pared down music in games like this kind of game. We were talking about the size of the studios and the cost and all that stuff, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. But it is possible to make music like this. Obviously, this came out a while ago. It is possible to make music like this kind of epic level music. That's what I mean when I say, like, I want to get that back. Like, I want to have that kind of a reason to make these big recordings for anything that we consume. It's
such an interesting thing that I know that you're talking about this a lot, but like there's Square Enix is an example of like a company that they really, really, really could do with hiring live, and sometimes they do. Yeah. Sometimes they do hire live orchestras. What's weird though is like one of their more recent projects, they didn't use orchestra, and it's like, come on, like there's no reason not to, you know, and especially when you're like doing a flagship game like a Final Fantasy, you know, which is like a famous IP that like everyone knows, even outside of the, you know, the scope of games. Yeah, I mean, to me that piece just like speaks to, you know, it's not a popular game. Ace Combat, it doesn't sell gangbusters. Yeah. It's not the point of it, but like musically, at the very least, like someone hears that and they're like, oh my God, like this is into it. Yeah. Something similar that I think is way more popular is from a game that came out 10 years ago called Bloodborne. It's one of my favorite soundtracks, and I'm actually planning a soundtrack review of it just because I feel like there's things to be said about it. This is Gehrman the First Hunter. This is live, and actually, like, I would play something more recent. There's a new game that they just made called Night Rain, which is great fun, great music, but it is VST.
You know from making music that it's not that hard to incorporate a combination of live and produced sounds and have it still be super authentic and human sounding. So it is possible even on a lesser than giant budget.
Other people have come on and said the same thing, and I've sort of been like, well, yes. Actually, you know, what's interesting to me about this whole conversation is that the emotional crux still exists. And I think that's where we get into problems, where it's like because the live instrumentation is the person playing, so you're feeling the energy and the emotion that the player's putting through and all that other stuff. However, I think that not everyone needs that because
totally.
But it is interesting how there's a slight enhancement to and I've started to shift my own, because I agree. I mean, like, you can still get the emotional impact of something without having a live instrumentation, right? Sure. You don't necessarily need it. But I do think that there's that je ne sais quoi, that human element that lingers in a live instrument's circumstance.
Yeah. You can't replace that energy, and no matter how you slice it, when we're listening to music, we are consuming energy, and like it's coming into us, you know? At least I feel that when I listen to music. And so if you can't always put your finger on it, but like even just in the case of the Doom, the only thing to fear is you. One live electric guitar would totally push that over the edge, and people would be wild about it, you know? So there would be like where maybe somebody's like, this is great, and I'm wild about it. They are not aware how much more wild about it they'd be with that little piece of je ne sais quoi, you know?
Actually, don't know.
It's life energy. It's human life energy, I think. You know, there is no recreating that in a production, no matter how much emotion you put into that MIDI keyboard. You know, like the strings, the sound even of a string instrument or a voice, we just haven't gotten there yet, you know? I mean, maybe in the context of AI, but I mean, in the terms of like pushing buttons in the studio to make sounds happen, we haven't gotten to the point of, a plug-in for strings or voice that sounds accurate, in my opinion. I mean, there are some very, very beautiful, expensive ones, but,
Yeah, no, 1,000,000%. I will say though, there is another, just to go back to Doom, because I don't know how much of that is MIDI, because there is a video, like a music video of him playing the, it's recorded live.
Yeah, I think some of it is definitely live. I don't know how much of it is live.
A ballad. I see what you mean. Yeah. Well, let's check out Gehrman the First Hunter. Let me know when you're ready. You put the headphones on. That's your tell when I know that you're paying attention and liking something.
I'm paying attention the whole time. I'm liking all of it. No, that's how I need to get the most precise understanding of the sound. And I was thinking while we were listening to this, I'm like, it really doesn't matter at all whether it's live or MIDI or whatever, or electronic, because most people can't tell the difference. I'm sure there are keen listeners. All of your listeners, obviously, are extremely keen. They can all tell the nuanced differences in how live versus produced sounds are. However, this is actually a good example, I think, of what we were talking about, of combining live sounds, live instruments, with electronic instruments. I think that there's a lot of merit to doing that, because what the end result is still this big, giant orchestral sound with the choral sound, which clearly has some live singers and live string players, but it's supplemented with a track of non-live sounds. I think this is a really good example of that, actually, and it being successfully done. And there are some interesting compositional things that happen in the middle. This was also the efforts, it looks like, of a variety. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 composers. It's possible that when there's that big harmonic shift, kind of like 3.5 or so minutes in, that is a completely different person who worked on that section. It strikes me compositionally that it may have been, because the style of the choices in the orchestrating and in the harmonies are very, very different all of a sudden, and it gets very interesting there. So I wonder if it was done like that, or if it was really truly like, okay, here's I wrote the backing track, now you're going to write the clarinet part, and you're going to write the vocals, and you're going to write whatever. There's a lot of different ways that could have been done, but as a person who also arranges and composes, it struck me as potentially that one of the composers was given a section to work on, or a team of them were given that section to work on, because it sounds so different to me all of a sudden in terms of the approach of the writing. It's really beautiful, though.
It is gorgeous, though, isn't it?
It's
I mean,
beautiful.
it's an emotional outpour.
Yeah.
It's like so on its sleeve. Just.
And I was thinking about what you said earlier too. Now I'm like, have I really lost a lot of the joy in listening to music? There was a period of time, though. I will be brutally honest and say, like, I wanted nothing to do with listening to classical music. I couldn't do it. I was like, I hate it. It just made me feel like I was at work all the time, And now I have a completely different feeling about it. I've my relationship with it has changed, so to speak.
I mean, mine too. Yeah, 1,000,000%. I mean, the pieces I've brought you, I've tried to provide a variety of things, but I mean, at the same time, there are compositions that are coming out concurrently.
Yeah.
That to me, like, I'm like, wow. All these classical composers that I used to sing, or these modern composers that I was so agitated to learn because the music was hard or not fun, or it was composed in an academic way. And we're getting these gorgeous, gorgeous pieces of music. There's two really modern things. One is literally June 25th old, and the other one is from 4 months ago. So, I mean, like, we're talking super recent, and these are both examples of classical pieces that are so modern, even though they're still connecting us to a different time period. So this next piece is called Lacrimosa. It's from Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. This is another game that's up for probably Game of the Year. Super niche game about what it was like living in medieval Bohemia. There's tons of, obviously, the references to that time period musically. But yeah, I've heard this one. This is it. 1 minute, 45 seconds. I mean, to me, does it do anything crazy? No, but in a way, it just excites me because it's like, holy shit, like here we have modern composers, everyone's talking about like, modern opera, modern classical music, and it doesn't always have to be avant-garde. And in fact, a lot of times it's actually what I've discovered in the last 3 years is that most of the most incredible composers alive that are writing in a variety of different styles are literally hiding in video game music.
Yes, that's true. I mean, this is, you're exposing that to me today, obviously. I mean, I thought this was great. I feel so sad for The Sopranos that had to start with that line because it is no joke.
Yeah, I know.
Both the lines are really hard. Those are really hard. It's very hard, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between out there, to just like start a piece from thin air at a very high pitch, no matter what your voice type is. And we've listened to several tunes where these singers are given like some brutally difficult entrances. So I realized just how incredibly spoiled by absolutely excellent singing I am. And so and the knowledge that I have now that I've learned how to sing too is just like, oh God, I feel for them with that entry because it's high and it's difficult. Those lines are difficult though to sing. So that being said, though, it's very well executed. It's beautiful. And I really value what you just said, that there's, the people who compose this likely compose in a variety of genres, but it just kind of shows you how much capability they have, in this world that they live in, where they might compose for a game like this and then go to like a game about vampires and do a completely different soundscape altogether, like whatever that may be. And it's just, there is just so much hidden talent, I think, that you're tapping into a lot of here, which is exciting.
Well, and the prime example of that is, thank you for the segue, is our next track is a track called Tethra Jahrak. And this was composed by Matthew Chalmers and Eric Preston. This is literally a composer that just a couple months ago, composed a bunch of legitimate boy band tunes. And then to go to this, well, you'll hear the different. I mean, I'm talking like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, like to a
His
T.
name is kind of familiar to me. I don't know if that's just like a source misappropriation or if I actually recognize it from something, but I'll have to do a little Googling later on. They are putting these soprano through it. These composers. They're like,
but yeah, they're like, yeah, you have to sing that.
You think it's video game music? It was really Puccini.
Well, and that's the funny part is that there's no Faking, which is for those of you that don't know, that means voice categorizing in the German word, or categorizing. I find it really interesting how, again, I mean, but that's well, what's your take on that piece?
So, okay, the track to this makes me feel like very typical video game music. Like, it's just this kind of like rhythmic stuff that just keeps going and going and going. And that for me stays interesting for about 30 seconds without a shift of some kind. And we were talking about this earlier, I think I forget which one. It might have been in the Doom one, where like when there's a shift, keeps your interest a lot more. This really like. So the vocal line is the most interesting part of it, and obviously that is meant to be the focus, and that's what it pulls me in right away too. But I just wish that what was happening behind her did something at some point, more, or had a little bit of a, and I don't know. I mean, maybe it has to do with also what's the game about and what.
It's a boss fight right now, so you're fighting against a big enemy, so like it's just there to like keep you focused for 10 minutes.
To me, the track was not innovative compared to a lot of the other stuff we listened to today. It gave me the very sort of like what I hear in the background sometimes, kind of just, it all sounds like that to me. And so when you've played me some things that are vastly different, like, oh, that's a completely different experience to me. And I feel like it almost took away from what they did with the vocal line, because the vocal line is so interesting and it's powerful, and there are instruments that are accompanying it, so it's meant to be the feature, obviously. But this backing track just doesn't really develop very much musically, and so that left me feeling a little short. But overall, I think it's a really cool piece of music. I just wish it went somewhere went somewhere.
Totally. I mean, those are such valid like points of feedback and criticism that I think are, it's good. It's good again to. I'm hearing you talk and I'm thinking to myself like, okay, how do I start to really apply this kind of like critical ear instead of just being like, oh, I love that piece, which I think is okay. You know what's funny, Alex, is that as I've further, I'm going to make a video about this because I think it's interesting. The further I've gotten away from opera, the more of a pundit I have become. Sometimes that scares me because it means losing the artist. And by becoming a pundit, I mean, I know in theory that's like illogical, but you know what I mean? It's like, is being a pundit, is that me? You know what I mean? And I think like I do have 14 years of experience doing the thing. So, but it's just interesting. You know what I mean? Like, I think maybe that's where I'm like, I don't want to wear the hat. Oh God, I'm going to become a critic. I hate critics, like,
I mean, it's not really that I don't really want to come across as like, oh, I'm so critical of this, but that is
I don't think
kind
you
of
do,
what I'm being asked to do a little bit. It's like, what is your opinion of this? Well, these are my real opinions.
That's what I want. Yeah.
I would also say that when I'm approaching it, it's also, I can't take off my hat as a musician of like, what I demand of myself in the recording studio is what I hope to hear in another recording. And I try to strive for the absolute best. And so that's a hard place to live when you're listening to music and trying to just consume it for enjoyment, and this isn't really me consuming it for enjoyment. This is me I'm something that I want to explore more of, but that, I do have, like, the criticism I would have of this would be the same as a piece of music I do have expertise in, and because I said, like, a good song is a good song.
Right, exactly. Well, I think that's, I think it's awesome. It's awesome I think that's why you're a prime example of why this series works, because I'm bringing you in with while we're here. I know that your fiance is actually quite a big gamer, so why don't you go ahead and read off his creds,
guys,
so that people
I was given a list so as not to embarrass myself any more than I already have done an excellent job of doing myself. And like I said, joystick only. Okay, so I have to read this because my fiance actually claims, and you can tell me from the creds if this is a legit claim or not. I feel like you guys, I need your feedback on this. He claims that if he had been permitted to explore video games as a career, that we would be sitting in a giant mansion at this point. his claim is. Okay, here are the creds. Now, you tell me if his claim, had he started 20 years ago, not decided to become an engineer and a physicist and have a PhD and save people's lives for a living.
Oh,
like,
well, that's pretty cool too. I mean,
I like my house, but one at the beach wouldn't be a problem. Okay, so here's the creds, gang. All right, Space Marine 2, max prestige level 4 on all 6 classes. Full clear on absolute difficulty. All of this sounds so made up to me, sorry.
No, I hear
But I'm
you.
proud of all of you who've reached these accomplishments. I know they require an enormous amount of time, and you have to get along with the people who you're playing with. Okay, I hear him yelling down there. Okay, Baldur's Gate 3, Illusionist. I also have to try to discern what this is, okay? Because you can't read that. Illusionist Mage, something specialist, crowd control specialist. Okay, okay, so that's Baldur's Gate 3. Helldivers 2, perpetual meat pudding. I don't know what that means, but it sounds funny.
Yeah.
D&D, obviously, because I feel like that's just like the one ring to rule them all. Sorry, bad reference. Don't get mad. Don't get mad at me. Degenerate gnome artificer. I don't know what any of those things mean, so I trust all of you are going to give me honest feedback on where this is at in his life, okay?
That's
all right. I need your feedback.
They'll give it to you. Don't worry.
I'm sure.
So all told, like, I mean, I guess, in the last couple hours, like really, we only got to like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I think maybe 10 tracks. Like what's your takeaway? Like what have you gleaned? What have you learned? Has anything changed?
Yeah. My takeaway is actually like what I kind of think of even as a professional in this industry of video game music is really starting to change a lot. I felt that there was probably a big shift like this happening when I started getting calls to go play this music live, and to see an audience full of people totally wild about it. It was clear to me that shift was happening in terms of what I might notice or hear even as a non-gamer. And that was true because it certainly gained an enormous amount of popular appeal at the time when all of those things started, or it had gained enough popular appeal for there to be these theater shows of it, which again cost a lot of money to put on. So, I knew that shift was happening, but it's not really in my world. And so this has exposed me to so many kind of new ideas of where I can consume music, and I appreciate that, and thank you for that, because I also suspect that a lot of the composers making this music, like we talked about this, are likely making other music, and maybe in other genres that I might more readily have access to consuming, or that just might come across in my world a little bit more naturally, organically, and so I like being able to support composers and arrangers and musicians who are working in these genres that I don't really listen to. Right? I want to hear their music, and I want other people to hear their music, because I think nobody makes music in a silo. You have this show and this channel because you are expressing what you feel about this music to so many people, and they're not in a silo either. They want to share and experience it together as well. To me, that's like the cross-germination of this beautiful set of ideas and composers and music I've never heard before. That's new to me, So I wrote things down. I'm gonna, explore some of these pieces of music, and maybe be like a little less annoyed if he chooses a game and the background music all the time. And it's like one of these, you know what I'm saying?
Well, tell them about Claire Obscure.
I'm
seriously,
going to. We're going to have a whole conversation about that. He'll be tuning in later, I'm sure, whenever you post this, because he's he's going to be into it.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I thought that this was really insightful, and would you come back? Is the question?
If talk about all the
all right, good. Well, you heard it here first. So if you want Alex to come back, definitely let us know in the comments, and you will let us know. Thanks a ton, everybody. Thank you, Alex. Seriously, appreciate it. And we'll see you all later. Bye. See you guys.